Chapter 100 of the Plum in the Golden Vase original version. Sister Hana encounters two troublemakers on the road, and Master Pu Jing comes to visit Brother Xiao. It is said that Han Daoguo and Wang Liu were returned to the Z family hotel. They had no daughter, so they couldn't sit still and suffer a landslide, so they sent Chen Sanner to go and hooked up the official He to continue. When official He saw that Liu Er was missing from the place, he still came to Wang Liuer's house to discuss with Han Daoguo. Your daughter IG is just keeping filial piety in the house and will not come out. When I sell all the goods, after asking for credit, you and I come with me to our home in Huzhou, so as not to have to go through such a journey here. Han Daoguo said, it's good to know that the official is looking down. After selling all the goods in one day, asking for credit, I hired a boat and went to Huzhou with Wang Liuer, no matter what. But my beloved sister is in the house, and she and Kuiping are chaste and chaste, so the title of sister is very appropriate during the day. I stay with JinPingMei. Brother Jin was older at that time, only 6 years old. Sister Yu, the daughter of Sun Erniang, was 10 years older and had 2 children with her, so she had little to do. Unexpectedly, since Chen Jingji's death, the garrison went out again. This spring Plum is full of delicacies every day, and its silk and brocade clothes, yellow gold, white silver, and round beads on its head illuminate everything. It's just that I can't help but sleep alone on the pillow at night. My heart is burning with desire. Seeing that Lian was a good man and just because he killed Zhang Sheng, the patrol was very cautious sooner or later. One day, during the winter moon, Lian was sleeping in the squad room. Suddenly he heard someone knocking on the back door and asked hurriedly, "Who is it?" He only heard a shout, "Open the door." Lian quickly opened the door. But I saw a person rushing in and ducking behind the light. When Lian looked at it, he recognized it as the adoptive mother's golden chamber. Lian said, "Foster mother, what's wrong with you coming here so late?" Jin Gui said, "I'm not here privately. Grandma sent me here." Lian said, "Why did Grandma ask you to come?" Jin Gui said with a smile, "You're so indifferent. I'll see if you've slept yet and tell me to give you something." He took a bag of clothes from his back and said, "Give it to you. There are a few more women's clothes in the bag for your mother. The day before yesterday, how tired you were of escorting the master's luggage and vehicle, and saving Grandma's life. Otherwise I would have been killed by Zhang Sheng." After saying that, he left his clothes and walked out for 2 steps, then turned around and said, "There is one more important thing." He took out another 52 pieces of gold ingot and left it with Lian. He hesitated that night. The next time he got up early, he took his clothes and went home with his mother. The mother asked, "Where did this thing come from?" Lian told what happened that night. The mother heard this and complained, "Zhang Sheng was beaten to death with 100 sticks for doing bad things. What does it mean that he gave his things to you today? I am now 60 years old. Since I lost your father, I have only looked at you. If who can I rely on to do something? Don't go there tomorrow morning." Lian said, "I won't go." He sent someone to call. "How can I agree?" The mother-in-law said, "I just said you have a cold." Lian said, "If you don't go, why don't you offend me?" The mother said, "You can go live with your uncle, Shandong Yakshaligui, for a few months, and then we can see what happens." This Lian said after all. He was a filial man, so he followed his mother's advice, packed his luggage, and went to Qingzhou Mansion to live with his uncle Ligui. After JinPingMei saw that Lian didn't come, she asked her companion to come and call her 3, 4, or 5 times. The mother-in-law initially promised that the family would be infected with the disease. But when someone came to check on her, she told her to go to her home to ask for money. This JinPingMei is still angry and doesn't mention it. Time flies, the sun and the moon fly by, and the sun returns as early as the 12th lunar month. The weather is like the first 10 days of the first lunar month. He commanded 13,000 troops and had been stationed in Dongchang Mansion for a long time. He sent his family member Zhou Zhang to come home with a letter. The teacher moved JinPingMei and Sun Erniang, and the children of Brother Jin and Sister Yu got into the car. Zhou Zhang was left behind and said, "Dong Zhuang, please ask your second master to guard the house." It turns out that the ruler also has a brother Zhou Xuan who lives in the village. Zhou Zhang was in the mansion, guarding the house with Zhou Xuan, Kuiping and sister Han Ai. Zhou Ren and his troops secured their vehicles and headed for Dongshang Mansion. When I go, I don't leave my homeland for the sake of my reputation. I know that I won't have to go back. There is a poem saying that Shandao Zhou Tongji is indeed a good general. At this time, the Central Plains were swept away, determined to swallow up the Hu. But see, robbers are rising from all directions like a mountain peak, and the sky is red with smoke and flames. When the general is angry, the world is at peace, and all the barbarians are wiped out. I have forgotten my private wishes for a long time on official business, and I don't know that I am here to serve the country. Jin restrains the sun and pays for war, and the Kilin painting is the leader. The autumn wind is strong outside Yamen Pass, and I am lying in iron clothes under the cold moon. After 20 years of hard work, he has earned his hair as beautiful as snow. The emperor clearly saw that he was more than 10,000 miles away, and he came to send a message after a lot of hard work. The golden seal hanging on the elbow is as big as a bucket, and the body is 7 feet tall. One day, Zhou Ren took his family's vehicles to Dongshang. The commander met ChenMei, Sun Erniang, Jinj, Yuji, and all the maids and children. They had a safe journey and felt very happy. He lived in the back hall of the government office. Zhou Rengxi said, Dong Zhuang invited the second master to come to the house and guard the house with the youngest Zhou Zhang. Zhou Tongji asked again, why is Lian missing? ChenMei said, what about Lian? Because he captured Zhang Sheng. I kindly rewarded him with 2 pieces of clothing to wear with his mother. When he arrived patrolling in the evening, he entered the back hall and put the pieces of silver collected by his second master from Dongzhuang, 50 taels in a package, on the Mingjianzhuo and stole them. He was called several times to accompany him, but he was unable to diagnose his illness. Come, I fell behind and asked him to go. He hid in his hometown in Xingzhou. The commander said, I look at him. It turns out he is so ungrateful. I will send someone to take him slowly. This ChenMei don't mention sister Han Ai either. A few days later, ChenMei saw that the commander was discussing the military situation, doing court and state affairs, and was busy thinking about it. He had no time to eat during the day, because they saw Zhou Yi, the second son of Zhou Zhang from his hometown, who was 19 years old and had a handsome face and a flirtatious look. They secretly had an affair and hooked up. Morning and night, the two played chess and drank in the room, hiding it from the commander. One day, the northern kingdom of Jin destroyed the Liao kingdom. We also saw Emperor Qinzong in Tokyo ascending the throne, gathering a large number of troops, and divided the Central Plains into 2 groups. The Generalissimo Nian did not drink, so he led 100,000 troops out of Jingxing Road, Taiyuan, Shaanxi, to capture Tokyo. The deputy commander-in-chief, Lieutenant General Oli, came to Tanzhou to capture Gaoyang Pass. The border soldiers could not resist, so they panicked Li Gang, the Minister of War, and General Zhang Shidao, who wrote the Xingyeho Pai Yeshu, and dispatched Shandong, Shaanxi, Henan, Hebei, Guangdong, and Shaanxi into 6 groups to control the troops, each relying on key areas to defend and intercept. At that time, Liu Yanqing of Shaanxi led the troops of Yansui. Wang Jin of Guangdong led the troops of Fenjiang. Wang Wan of Hebei led the troops of Weibo. Xing Xingzong of Henan led the troops of Zhang. Yang Weizhang of Shaanxi led the troops of Zelu. And Zhou Zhu of Shandong led Qingyan. Soldiers, but when Zhou Tongji saw the general situation, the soldiers came to seize the border. And the Ministry of War Yu Shuhuo Pai Xinghuo came, so he quickly organized his troops, fully equipped and marched together. By the time the century horse arrived at Gaoyang Pass, Jin Guoqian's inseparable men and horses had already rushed into the pass and killed countless men and horses. It was early May, yellow sand was rising everywhere, and strong winds were blinding. The commander raised his troops to rush forward, but he was unable to prevent himself from being driven away, so he counterattacked on horseback. An arrow shot by Mo Qiu hit the throat, and he died along with the horse. The generals used hooks and ropes to pick them up, but the soldiers here only grabbed the corpses and kept them away from them, injuring countless soldiers. Unfortunately, once Zhou Tongji was killed in battle. He died at the age of 47. Exactly, the Yu family is a loyal and good general for the country, and the blood of the wise and foolish is stained with blood. The ancients were not satisfied with their thoughts, so they wrote a poem, sighing and saying, "Victory or defeat cannot be expected by military strategists, and safety and danger are all determined by one's own destiny." He died before leaving the army, and the setting sun and the river were extremely sad. Governor Zhang Shui saw that the commander was absent in the battle, so he quickly raised money to close the army, counted the injured soldiers, and retreated to Dongzhang. It's no big deal to play to the imperial court on a starry night. The soldiers under his command carried the body back to Dongzhang Mansion. ChunMei's whole family moved the sky with their wails. They put the coffin together and buried it, and handed over the military talisman and seal letter. One day, ChunMei and her family Zhou Ren sent the coffin back to King County with no inscription. The words are divided into two parts. Single cousins Kuiping and Han Iji. Since ChunMei's death, they have been living at home with light meals and tea, observing chastity and living their days and months. It is the end of spring and the beginning of summer. The scenery is bright, and the days are long and sleepy. The two sisters walked leisurely to the flower pavilion of the West Academy, seeing the flowers in full bloom, the orioles singing. The scenery makes me sad. Shui couldn't help but feel calm. This sister Hanai only missed Chen Jingji. She was ruthless and clueless in everything. She was sad when she saw things, and burst into tears without realizing it. When the two sisters were mourning, they saw their second master, Zhou Zhuan, coming over to persuade them. "You two sisters, if you are not worried, you need to ask for help. I have been having dreams for several days, which is a bit unlucky. I dreamed of a bow hanging on a flagpole. Come on, the flagpole is broken. I don't know if it's bad or good." Sister Hanai said, "I'm just afraid there's some talk around the master." While hesitating, he suddenly saw his family member Zhou Ren, dressed in filial piety, walking towards him in a hurry. "Report, misfortune. The master is like this. He was killed at the border on the 7th day of May. The eldest grandma, the second grandma's family, and their families came with the hearse. The second master Zhou Zhuan was panicked, cleaned the front hall, and parked the car. The coffin was placed with sacrifices, and the whole family started wailing. While I was tired from fasting for 7 days, the monk chanted sutras. Brother Jin and Sister Yu, wearing linen and carrying mourning, pay homage to visitors, select a day for the funeral, and are buried in the ancestral tomb. No need to elaborate, but it is said that the second master, Zhou Zhuan, led his 6-year-old brother Jin to write documents and report to the court, ask for sacrifices and burials, and take over the ancestral position. The imperial court surrendered tomorrow, and the Ministry of War responded with an inscription. The late ruler Zhou Zhu worked hard to serve the country and was not involved in the king's affairs. He is commendable for his loyalty and bravery. Officials were sent to offer sacrifices to an altar, and the post of governor was granted to the top of the tomb. As usual, Yizhi was well raised and brought up a young child to take over the ancestral duties. While the spring Plum was taking care of herself at home, her lust became more and more intense. Zhou Yi was often left in the Xiang pavilion, where the sun never came out. Coming and going in the morning and evening, sexual desire is excessive, and the disease of bone steaming and tuberculosis rises. He takes medicine every day, reduces his diet, loses his energy, becomes as thin as firewood, and is greedy for sex. One day, after his birthday, it was a hot summer day in June, and he got up early in the morning. Unexpectedly, he hugged Zhou Yi on the bed. After ejaculation, cold air came out from his nose and mouth, and his vaginal fluid flowed into a puddle. And he screamed in mourning. Alas, he died on Zhou Yi. He died at the age of 29. When Zhou Yi saw that he was out of breath, he panicked, stole some gold and silver items from the box, took them with him, and ran away. The maid and adoptive mother did not dare to hide, so she reported to the second master Zhou Zhuan. He locked up his old family member Zhou Zhang and led him to look for Zhou Yi. But suddenly something went wrong. He was walking outside the city to stay at his girl's house, and he was tied up with a rope. Knowing his situation, he was afraid of making a fool of himself. Jin was not allowed to take up his post for a long time. He took him to the front hall and without explanation, beat him with 40 sticks and killed him immediately. Look at Brother Jin and Ernie's son. On the one hand, he mourned at his ancestor's tomb and was buried with his ruler. The two foster mothers in the room, Begonia and Yugui, were all sent to find wives. Only Jinping and Sister Hanai tried to persuade him repeatedly but refused to go. One day, unexpectedly, the Jin troops robbed Yonling in Tokyo, and both the Supreme Emperor and Emperor Jinkang were taken prisoner to the north. The Central Plains is ownerless and desolate everywhere. Fighting broke out, and people fled. The common people in Li cried out for their loss, and the common people suffered from hanging upside down. The general army has reached the border of Shandong. Among the people, husbands and wives have fled, ghosts are crying and gods are screaming, and fathers and sons are ignoring each other. Jinping has been taken away by his Natal family, and everyone is trying to escape with their lives. Z left Sister Hanai with nowhere to rely on, so he had to pack his bags, put on his miserable clothes, left King County, and went to Linching to find his parents. When I arrived at Z's store in Linching, the store was closed and the owner left. Not wanting to run into Chen Sanner, Sanner said, "Your parents followed Mr. He to Huzhou in the south of the Yangtze River last year." Sister Hanai held the yukon in her arms and sang little songs along the way, looking for her parents. Hungry and thirsty for food and drink along the way, staying at night and traveling at dawn. Busy like a brave dog, hurried like a fish that slipped through the net. The bow shoes are small and it's a lot of hard work. After traveling for several days, we arrived at Suzhou. It was getting late and we were in an isolated village. A mother-in-law, over 70 years old, was pounding rice on the stove to make rice. Sister Hanai then went forward to wish her good luck and said, "My family is from King County. Because of the famine, I went to the south of the Yangtze River to visit my relatives. Unexpectedly, it was getting late. I have the right to let my mother-in-law stay here for one night. I will go tomorrow morning, and the rent will be quite generous." The mother-in-law saw that this woman was not a servant girl from a poor family. She was born with elegant manners and an extraordinary appearance. Because he said, "Since we are staying here, please sit on the king while I wait for me to make rice. Some of the men who carry the river will come to eat." The old woman put the firewood stove on the king and immediately made a large pot of rice and beans, and cut to more pieces. A large plate of lettuce was sprinkled with a pinch of salt. A few men came in, put down their spades, and asked, "Do you have anything to eat?" The mother-in-law said, "You can go and eat by yourself." Now everyone took their food and spread it around to eat. He saw only one person inside, about 44 or 5 years old, with a purple face and yellow hair. So he asked his mother-in-law, who is sitting on this king. The mother-in-law said, "This lady is from King County and went to Jiangnan to find her parents. Go and stay here for the night." The man asked, "Madam, what is your surname?" "Sister," I said, "my family's surname is Han, and my father's name is Han Daoguo." The man stepped forward and asked, "Sister, what are you doing? Isn't she my niece?" "Sister Hanai?" "Sister," I said, "you are just like my uncle Honor." The two of them hugged each other and cried. Because he asked, "Where are your parents? You are in Tokyo. How did you get here?" Sister Hanai said it all over again. "Because I was married in the garrison, my husband was gone, and I have been a widow until now. My father-mom went to Huzhou with He Guanren. I wanted to look for it, but there was no one to take her with me in the chaos. I sang alone and looked for some food and clothing. I didn't want to run into my uncle here." Then Honor said, "Since your parents, when I went to Tokyo, I had no way of making a living. So I sold my house and became a wife by crossing the river here, looking for a bowl of food every day. In this case, you and I will go to Huzhou to find your parents." "Sister," I said, "it would be nice if my uncle goes with me." Then he also filled a bowl of rice with Sister I to eat. Sister I took a sip, but when she saw the coarse rice, she couldn't swallow it. She only sipped half the bowl and stopped eating. One night scene has been mentioned. By the next day, when all the wives had gone, Honor paid his mother-in-law's house rent, received his sister Ai's farewell, and went out to look forward to the future. Sister Han Ai was originally delicate, had small bow shoes, and carried a few soft hairpins and combs with her, all of which were scattered round on the road. We were about to board the ship in Huai'an and sail to Huzhou in the south of the Yangtze River. For more than one day, we caught He Guan's family in Huzhou, looked for his parents, and met each other. Unexpectedly, He Guanren is dead, and there is no wife or children in the family. Wang Liuer is the only one, leaving behind his 6-year-old daughter and several hectares of rice fields. Less than a year later, Han Daoguo also died. Wang Liuer and Honor had an old relationship, so they married his brother-in-law and lived in farming. There were children from wealthy families in Huzhou who came to propose marriage to Sister Han Ai. When they saw how smart and beautiful she was, Honor repeatedly taught him to get married. His beloved sister cut off her hair and eyes, became a nun, and swore that she was no longer worthy of anyone else. Later, at the age of 31, he died without illness. It's exactly this. Before the pure bones return to the earth, the resentful soul first penetrates to the 9th heaven. After Honor and Wang Liuer became a couple, it was no big deal which official, family, property and land they would like to receive. But he said that the Dajin troops had robbed Dongzhang Mansion and had a look at the boundaries of Qing County. I saw the officials fleeing, the city gates in the dark, the people fleeing, and fathers and sons in exile. But see, smoke grows in the fields, and the sun covers the yellow sand. Seal the pig and grow the snake, devouring each other, dragons and tigers fight, each competing for the upper hand. The countryside is covered with red flags. Men cry and women cry, and thousands of households are frightened. The generals of the Fan army are like a hive of ants. Their short swords and long spears are like dense bamboo. There are corpses and rotten bones in one place, lying 3 and 4 vertically. There are piles of broken knives and broken swords, 7 to 8 pieces. Everyone brings men and women with them, and every house closes its doors. 9 of the 10 rooms are empty. And there is no countryside or city. Deer are running and rats are scurrying. And the rituals, music, clothes are there. Exactly how many people in the palace cry with red sleeves, while the prince walks in white. At that time, when Wu Yunyang saw the enemy soldiers arriving, everyone locked their doors and ran away. She couldn't help but also pack some gold and jewelry to play with and took them with her. Uncle Wu was dead at that time, and together with Uncle Wu, Dan, and Xiao Yu, they led their 15-year-old brother Xiao, locked up the front and back of the house, and wanted to go to Jinan Mansion to join Yunli Shu. As soon as they came to avoid the soldiers, they got married to brother Xiao. Along the way, I saw everyone in chaos and horror. Poor Wu Yunyang, wearing her own clothes, and her 5 uncles, a man and a woman, walked in a queue out of the city gate to the outskirts, and ran forward. When I arrived at the crossroads of Kangye, I saw a monk, wearing a purple-brown cassock, holding a 9-ring-tin staff, wearing sandals on his feet, carrying a cloth bag on his shoulder, with classics wrapped in the bag, walking forward to welcome the future. In the moon my mother made an inquiry and shouted loudly, "Madam Wu, where are you going? Are you here with my apprentice?" The bluffed Yunyang turned pale and said, "Master, what kind of disciple do you want me to ask?" The monk said again, "Madam, don't tell me that in your sleep you remembered that 10 years ago on the east peak of Daiyu, someone was killed. Yin Xiangxi rushed to stay in my cave. I am the old monk in Zudong, with the Buddhist name Pujing. Why don't you agree to be my disciple?" Second Uncle Wu said, "Master, as a monk, why don't you take a shortcut? In these chaotic years, running round to escape, he has this child, and he will have to take over the incense for a long time. Is he willing to give up and become a monk with you?" The monk asked, "Are you really not going with me?" Second Uncle Wu said, "Master, you can relax," he said. "I missed someone's way. I'm afraid that the enemy soldiers will come later, and I won't be able to protect myself." The monk said, "You are not with my disciples. It's already late, and you can't get out. The enemy soldiers are coming, and you can't go out. If you don't get here, come with me to this temple to rest for the night and go there tomorrow morning." Wu Yunyang asked, "Master, which temple is it?" The monk pointed with his hand and said, "It's by the roadside, the monk. We were led to Yangfu Temple." Wu Yunyang recognized Yangfu Temple and had visited it once. By the time they arrived at the temple, most of the elders and monks had walked away, except for a few Zen monks who were meditating behind them. A large sulfur glass sea lamp was lit in front of the Buddha, and a burner of incense was burning. It was already the time when the sun was shining over the mountains. That night, Wu Yunyang, her second uncle Wu, Dan, Xiao Yu, and brother Xiao, a family of 5 men and women, stayed in the abbot's house in the temple. The young monk recognized him, arranged some meals, and ate with Yunyang. Teacher Na Pujing was sitting cross-legged on the bed in the meditation hall, knocking on wooden fish and chanting sutras. Yunyang, brother Xiao, and Xiao Yu were sleeping on the bed. Uncle Wu and Dian were sitting together, and all the hard-working people fell asleep, except for Xiao Yu, who was not asleep yet. She got up in the abbot's house and looked through the crack in the door to see Master Pujing reciting sutras. "When I look at the third watch, I can see the sad golden wind, the slanting moon, the silence of the people, and the silence of all people. The sea lamp in front of the Buddha is half bright but not dark." Master Pujing saw that the world was in chaos, the people were being robbed, and there were so many dead in battles. He showed compassion, extended his power to benefit others, paid homage to the Buddha, exorcised ghosts, explained old grievances, put an end to all obstacles, and went to transcendence. So he recited the mantra of the explanation of injustice 100 times. After a while, the wind was cold and the air was cold. Dozens of generations of people with battered heads, disheveled heads and clay faces, or with broken hands and arms, or with their bellies and hearts ripped out, or with headless lameness, or with necks hung in chains, have all come to understand the Zen masters' sutras and mantras. Listed on both sides, the Zen master then said, "You and other living beings are repaying each other's grievances and are unwilling to be liberated. When will it be done? You should listen carefully to my words and follow the directions to help you to go away." The verse says, "I urge you not to make grievances. It is difficult to untie the grievances. In one day, they will be knotted, and injustice will not be fully resolved for 1,000 days. If you try to resolve an injustice, it is like pouring water over snow. I have seen people who have made enemies suffer from injustice. I repent now and realize my true nature. Seeing my true heart, I feel that I have been wrong." Natural snow. Relying on the deep power of this sutra, it is recommended to eradicate all bad karma. You should support each other and never make any mistakes. At that moment, all the souls bowed and laughed. Xiao Yu peeked and didn't recognize it. After a while, another big man came in. He is 7 feet long, tall, fully armored, with an arrow stuck in his chest. He claims to be the ruler of Zhou because he was defeated by the enemy in the battle. He was recommended by his master and went to Tokyo. He was born in Shenzhen. He was the second son, named Shen Shushan. Before he finished speaking, there was another person, with a pure body and a glorious body. He said that he was Ximen King, a wealthy family in King County. Unfortunately, he died of drowning. He was recommended by his teacher and went to Tokyo to give birth to Shen Tong, the second son of Shen Yu, a wealthy family. Go to. Xiao Yu recognized him as his father and was too frightened to speak. There was already another man, with his head raised and blood all over his body, who said he was Chen Jingji, because he was killed by Zhongsheng. He was recommended by his master, and now he is going to Tokyo City to become his son with the Wang family. I saw a woman with her head raised and blood on her chest. He said to himself, "This slave is Pan, the wife of Wu Da and Ximen King's concubine. Unfortunately, she was killed by her enemy Wu Song, recommended by my master. I'm now going to the Li family in Tokyo to be a caretaker for my daughter." There was already another person with a body. He was short, with a green face and back. He said he was woozy. He died of poisoning because of being instigated by Wang Po, Pan. He was recommended by his master. Now he goes to the fan family of a villager in Suzhou to be a boy. There is another one, the woman, with a yellow and thin complexion, dripping with blood, said to herself, I am the Li family. I am the wife of Hua Zixu and the concubine of Ximen King. She died due to a bloody mountain avalanche. She was recommended by the master and is now in Tokyo City, where conductor Yuan entrusts her to give birth. She was born as a girl. I have met another boy. He said that he was a waste of money. Unfortunately, his wife was angry to death. He was recommended by his teacher. Now he is going to Jung Qianhu's house in Tokyo to be reborn as a boy. I have seen another woman with her neck and feet bound. He said that Ximen King's family came to Wang's wife, the Song family, hanged himself to death, and was recommended by his master. Now he is going to Tokyo to be the daughter of Shu's family. There was another woman, with a sallow face and thin skin, who said that Zhou Tong controlled his wife Pang's family. Chun Mai died of leprosy. He was recommended by his teacher. Now he is going to Tokyo to be a daughter of the Confucius family, and he is going to be reborn. There was another man, naked and with disheveled hair, with stick marks all over his body. He said he was beaten to death. Zhang Shang, recommended by his master, is now going to Daxingwai in Tokyo to be a man for the poor Gao family. There was another woman with a rope tied around her neck, who said she was Ximen King's concubine Sun Zui. Unfortunately, she hanged herself to death. I was recommended by my teacher, and now I am going to be a daughter of the poor Yao family outside Tokyo. There was another woman, young, with a belt around her neck and legs, who said to herself, the daughter of Ximen King, the wife of Chen Jingji. The eldest sister Ximen is also unfortunately. He also hanged himself to death. He was recommended by his master and went to the outside of Tokyo. He married Zhongui, a police officer, and asked him to be reborn. I saw another young man and said to myself, Zhou Yi. He was also beaten to death. Recommended by my teacher, I'm now going to the Gao family outside Tokyo City to be a boy. I am named Gao, and I want to keep my son and give him a child. After speaking, everyone suddenly disappeared. Xiao Yu shuddered. It turns out that this monk was just talking to these ghosts. Just as he was about to tell Wu Yunyang to the bedside, unexpectedly, Yunyang was sleeping soundly. She, her second uncle Wu and other men and women, went to Jinan Mansion to seek refuge with her in laws Yunli, carrying 100 beads and a jeweled ribbon ring. Shoo, all the way to Jinan Mansion. I asked Yenshin General at the gate of the village and informed him to go in. Yan Shenjiang heard that Yunyang was coming to see her bride, and she felt like old friends at the first sight. Summarize the etiquette. It turned out that he had lost his wife recently, so he asked his neighbor Wang Po to accompany Yunyang. And they had a feast in the back hall, which was very sumptuous. Uncle Wu and Dan were in charge in another place. Because he talked about avoiding the army and getting married, he gave Yunli Shu the 100 beads, gems, and ribbon rings as a tea ceremony. Yunli Shu accepted it and did not say anything about the marriage. In the evening, I taught Wang Po to sleep with Yunyang. He mentioned the words to Yunyang to explore its meaning, and said, Yunli Shu is a military officer, but he is also a scholar. He has been paying attention to his wife since he cut off his shirt. Unexpectedly, his wife has passed away and she has been living alone ever since. Today, according to this mountain city, although Ren is young, he mounts his horse to manage the army and dismounts his horse to manage the people. Life and death are in control. If the wife does not give up, she is willing to become a happy couple, a good pair. And the son will also be able to match the Qin and Jin dynasties. Wait for the day of peace, and then go home. It's not too late to go.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.